Hey everybody, and welcome to another RCT2 review stream. Today we are looking at Disney's Animal Kingdom, Spain by Colby. This is a new release, just released yesterday, I think, but it is not a new park. Colby started this back in 2010, so a good solid 10 years ago, and it's gone through a number of changes over the years, and as of late, he's had struggled with the object limit, and I can see why. It's a massive park, 230 by 230, with just a little section over here blacked out. But it's got a ton of stuff and a lot of things to look at. We're gonna dive in here in a minute and kind of go through all this, the different areas. Um, and this might be a longer one just based on how much there is. One thing I wanted to touch on just to start with, and just kind of get this out of the way per se. We had a nice discussion on the New Element Discord today about what makes a park realistic or not as far as following the particular styles of a manufacturer for one, or a park brand for another, like Cedar Fair, Six Flags, Disney, whatever. Because this park, despite being Disney, has a number of pretty substantial coasters, so thrill ride type coasters. In my eyes, this makes it a little less realistic because this is not something that Disney would do. That's not to say they are coaster averse. They have quite a number of coasters, such as Expedition Everest, which we'll see, Rock and Roller Coaster, which goes upside down, Tron, Light Cycle, the Moto Coaster, and plenty of other things like that. But the one thing that all of those have in common, and all the other thrill rides in Disney property, is that they are 48-inch rider height maximums or less. So that kind of precludes any B&M, which is 54 inches, and many Intamins and other rides that have similar kind of height requirements, because Disney is really focused on that family-friendly approach and really trying to make their rides accessible to a large audience wherever possible. So I can understand seeing larger coasters in parks. For me personally, it's not something I typically like to see as far as something like this goes. It's generally for me a little less realistic. I think the end of the discussion today kind of set up that I am in the minority for that, which is fair. I get it. But that's all I really want to say about that, because this is a great park and I want to review it and point out all the cool stuff, because there's a lot of neat things to see. So let's roll in here. There's a lot of interesting kind of details that came from the real life Animal Kingdom down here in Florida. So actually this entrance right here, there's a little gift shop on the side, real life here. You would have Rainforest Cafe over here. Instead, we've got a nice B&M flying coaster. And then we have our entrance here with this kind of cool pathway art on the ground here, and some nice broken up planters all throughout the entrance space here. As we come into our pretty simple, pretty understated front entry with a flamingo exhibit right away. All of this leading up to the Tree of Life being kind of the main centerpiece of the area. I kind of like how this was done. It's got coaster track all up in here, and then it's got a bunch of different leaves and scenery pieces up here, which, you know, a lot of large trees have been done in the game, so there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think this one's nicely done. The bottom a little bit, well, the jagged land takes away from things just a little bit, I think, but you can definitely see a couple of things in this park. There's object limit struggles, for one, and then there's also the fact that this park was built over 10 years, so there is a massive gap in style between some of the areas, or among some of the areas throughout the park. So you kind of have to discount a little bit of that, because, I mean, heck, if going over 10 years, I would expect to see a differentiation in style. But anyway, we can see all the nice little trails around here, and we also do have the It's Tough to Be a Bug simulator up underneath, like the real thing. Fun fact on the real one, the structure was taken from how they do structures for oil derricks out in the ocean, so that it could span the gap needed for that big theater underneath. So let's continue. Let's see which way we want to go. Well, we'll look at these buildings kind of in the middle, sort of bright, sort of cheery Not hugely indicative of a particular theme, although I know there is one. There's a nice readme that goes along with this, but similar to what you see at the real Animal Kingdom. And then we also have all the different shops and stalls and things like that. Here's Flame Tree Barbecue, which is a real one. Here's the Nomad Lounge. Over on this side, we have Island Mercantile. So all shops that you see in the real park. Over here, we have a nice little seating area and this little Rivers of Light show, which this is all you get for it, unfortunately, but that's recently canceled by Disney, so unfortunately we're not going to get to see any more Rivers of Light, which was a bit of a shame in my opinion. It was a nice little show, very kind of chill and relaxing. Loving the little dragon here, this little detail. Well, let's start over here while we jump on in to this side. So we're gonna cross the bridge and head over to this side, and we've got a number of rides right off the bat. So the first thing we have is this Enchanted Acres little hedge maze around a teacups ride, which I really like. Really a big fan of that. I think it's cool to integrate both of these things together, and it's just a neat look to the ride. And down into here we have the Fantasia Fairy Garden. So there's some definite Magic Kingdom influences throughout the park. It's kind of a mashup and amalgam of a bunch of different areas. There's some things from Tokyo Disney Sea, there's some things from the real Animal Kingdom, and there's some things from Magic Kingdom, and then other Disney parks around the world too. So we get to our first of these big coasters. So this one here is Draken Tower. So let's take a ride along here. Kind of an interesting, unique first drop. I like how this dives out of that castle tower and then kind of swoops down close to the water here. Really neat interaction with the swan boats. Then it's going to come back up into the show building here before going back down and around. We'll try and follow it here. It's kind of weaving its way around. This is definitely less of an inversion focused and more of a turn-focused ride, which I can appreciate. It's a nice little roll through that castle turret and tower over on that side. Pop out of the building once more, wrap around and into the brakes. Nice looking ride, decent enough. Interesting choices here with the curved lift hill and things like that. I would have also recommended the block brakes, but to be honest, it's all hidden and it's not meant to be seen anyway, so nicely done. The ride is interesting in that a lot of it happens where you can't see it, but you do get a couple of these glimpses like the lift hill here and then this big drop, so it definitely builds that anticipation for what is to come. So alright, next we're going to head into our little volcanic crater here underneath this nice little cover. So there's a couple of different rides in here. The first one is entirely hidden. It's this ride here called Quest of the Unicorn. It's a little bit of a shame that it's hidden because it looks like a nice little dark ride type coaster thing. So would be cool to see what that actually would look like if there was theming to it. But we've got a couple of different things. So let's first look at what's in here and then we'll pop out the back side. So this is sort of a mix of Dinoland things like the Boneyard here, which is a little play area. I have the nice shade structures here, but they're all kind of covering and hiding what's underneath. Would be neat to see the rest. And then some more of these eating areas here. So this is Restaurantosaurus and Dino Bites and all the shops and things that you see at the real Animal Kingdom in their dino area. Really liking this bone entrance here. You can kind of see just the skeletal structure of the dinosaur. I think that's a cool detail. And then using the volcano scenery pieces here for the ride itself, including this one bit here where the ride pops up and out. It's a really neat look. This is a similar ride to Journey to the Center of the Earth at Tokyo Disney Sea, which is like a test track style ride if you're familiar with that one. Just a little more intense and also a little shorter. This one's pretty long, actually. You can kind of see the mess of track under here if we take away some of floor here. So it's definitely got a couple of launches and some other bits and pieces. I kind of like how it just pops out in different areas as it cruises around the space. There's one dive here at the very end, which is nice, where it comes up, has this cool dive down, and then back in. Definitely fast, definitely intense, but certainly a plausible looking ride, and one that I think turned out pretty nicely. I like this little cover here on the side. The whole landscape, I suppose, feels a little bit blocky, but at the same time, uh, I'm really liking this kind of curved hut structure, and then some of the wall structures here too. I think those are nice and a good little mix in there with the rest of it. So if we duck out the backside here, we end up with this little area just kind of off to the side. This is a kind of Little Mermaid type area. So we've got a couple of different bits. Here's Scuttle's Scooters, which is a tilt-a-whirl ride built into a ship, which is a really cool detail here. Ship coming out of the wall on this side, but we have the bow of the ship here, the mast and everything, and the ride mixed in. I think it's a really well integrated ride into the theming. It's well done. Here's a facade that is sort of a recreation of the castle from the movie, with these arches that come out to this kind of tower over the water, similar to the Disney Dark Ride. And we have a coaster slash dark ride, boat ride in here called Ariel's Undersea Adventure, which has a little bit of interaction outside, which I like. In RCT, it's tough. If you're not going to do interior theming, sometimes it's not almost worth doing a dark ride in some cases, because you're just kind of having a ride that just weaves back and forth inside a big box. But this kind of a thing gives you an idea of what's inside, and also gives you something to look at. So I appreciate it. I think it's nicely done. And then the landscaping here kind of taking over the building is cool. On the other side, we have the Blowfish Balloon Race, which has some pretty cool water effects on the side. And then over on this area, we have Jumpin' Jellyfish, which is pretty neat themed two roto drops kind of side by side. And I think it's intended to be sort of like a bounce tower or a frog hopper of sorts, which is kind of a neat little thing. There is this bit here that I find a little bit interesting. So this is a show building element, we can kind of assume here, but it's kind of small, and I would kind of expect this whole area to be a show building if we were going to do that. But what was clever about it, I mean, I would kind of discount that as not being really necessary, or if you're going to do it, make it larger. But what's cool is that the backside of this and the waterfall and everything, it works towards the hotel. So the hotel is back on this side. This is Animal Kingdom Lodge, which we're going to stop and look at here real briefly. Based off of the real Animal Kingdom Lodge, and actually done really, really well. I like the architecture here, the kind of African style of the turrets, and the thatching with the kind of wood ribs on there, and then the color variation on all of the decks work really, really well on all the little patio areas, because it's a big structure that could be really repetitive, but because the color is varied and there's just a couple of these little cutouts within the structure itself, I think it looks really nice. It looks really clean, and it's pretty varied too. And just like the real hotel, the animals can get right up to the different areas. You can kind of see where this whole Serengeti space is and the scenery used for it. They can come right up to the different spaces and see the guests from the rooms, and the guests can see the animals. So it's pretty nicely done overall. I think this is a really well detailed piece of architecture, and I would suspect one of the later things done in the park, but hard to say. But let's continue to what I'm assuming is like the Agrabah type area. So yeah, it appears similar to that. So we can come out from the other side of the Jurassic Dinoland area, and we hit a couple of different rides here: Jasmine's Flying Carpets and Flight of Genie. So a couple Aladdin themed things here. Definitely the Arabian marketplace type architecture. These domes I've always found to be a little bit out of place as far as the scenery goes in RCT. It doesn't feel quite right as far as shading goes, but there's not a lot of good options for giant domes, and I think Trackatecture domes with the ride pieces can look pretty rough sometimes. So can't fault this choice too hard there. I actually really like this entrance, especially on the kind of on-axis approach from the bridge here. I think that's really well done. And then inside we've got a boat ride here. So this is Sinbad's Seven Sea Voyage. in this nice show building on the backside here. A bunch of different kind of level variations. It would probably make sense from a realistic standpoint just to continue this across as a full height um, thing, just so you're not adjusting the roof height every little square here, but this at least gives it a little bit of variation if you're not going to put things on top of the roof, which, due to object limit, I would say that was a good choice not to put things there. I'd rather spend it on other more useful scenery pieces. So continuing along, we have our double-decker carousel here. This is the caravan carousel, which underneath the big structure here. So we have this sort of plaza in the middle with the structure all around it. Really, really like the way that this area comes together. It feels pretty vibrant. The colors are nice, despite the base colors being the tan and browns and everything. So it has that oasis feel to it. It's done very nicely as we transition more into the kind of tan and other African feel, more Moroccan, I think, type architecture here. Before we go there, though, let's stop and take a look at Scorpion's Curse, which is a disco coaster of sorts. Little bit sort of an odd custom layout, but not too bad. I would kind of recommend on these to go the usual route, but I like it. The Scorpion's tail here coming up on the side is a little bit odd. It maybe could have been executed a bit better, but for the most part, I think it's nice. Then we have our 1001 Nights Tilt-A-Whirl in here too. When you get to a park this size, there's not a whole lot of selection as far as flat rides go, so I can kind of understand this repeating from the same ride over at the aerial area earlier, the Little Mermaid area. And I mean, heck, in the real one, Disney's got a number of the circular rides that you can go up and down on. It's not unheard of that you'd have the same type of ride in the park, just reskinned. So let's take a look at this. This is called Stallion. So Stallion is a wooden coaster using the Millennium Flyer trains. So we're going to kind of assume that it's GCI, even though it doesn't necessarily have the traits of a GCI, but it does have a pretty nice out and back looking layout. Nice looking little turnaround here, kind of diving through there. I do like this tunnel structure here that starts on the diagonal. Pretty cool. And then this kind of combo tunnel, combo open air something is nice. And then the way that this wraps around and comes back and parallels across. It's a good way to do an out and back coaster and yet still keep it kind of interesting. This final dive here through some tunnel and then come back. A little bit of an oddball structure here with the transfer track that's too short. There is no transfer itself here, and this maintenance bay is about half as big as it needs to be. And it looks like some footers started here, but maybe not continued through. Well, they are. Never mind, I take that back. They're all throughout, so that's nice. That's a good little detail there to have. But definitely something to think through if you're doing transfer tracks and things like that, to at least be consistent with it and to think through how it actually would operate, could it operate, and make sure that it makes sense. So this is a walkthrough type attraction. So this is Hasbach Canyon Nature Walk, which is actually really nicely done. Has this these nice rocks here. I know these are often controversial as far as scenery goes, just because the texture is a little bit oddball, but I kind of like the look, especially when they're integrated well, and I think these are integrated well, so nicely done there. And actually, I just like this nature walk in general, where we go from building to building, but they're connected with these great little walkways and everything, so I think that's well done. I would maybe be consistent with this rock work, say over here also, but a nice way to showcase some different animal habitats and still have this whole area. And then here, this aviary, I assume it's an aviary. Yep, it sure is. That's a really great way to do an aviary, since you can do the mesh with the scenery, but it can take up a ton of objects and look a little hokey too. So this is a nice way to go about doing that. Alrighty, well, let's continue on to Our next area here, and I'm not sure which area this is. I'm looking for a sign, but it's all in the README. I just can't remember the README right this instant. But let's take a look. This is sort of like the almost mining type area, maybe sort of South African-y, perhaps. So we have a top spin here, not necessarily a Disney type ride, but a pretty neat theme to it. This is called the Excavator, and it's got a pretty cool structure around it with the gears and everything like that. Another animal habitat here right next door. This is kind of neat. The Rainbow Ridge Mining Company with the mine cart here. Definitely way oversized as far as the mine cart goes, but it looks awesome. Like the scenery there is just super well done. So nicely done there. And then we have our big ride here. This is Kishi, and it is an Intamin launched coaster. So let's take a look at this guy. Here, it's a double launch coaster, sort of like a, I guess like a Maverick type style here, because it's got that second launch there. So let's watch him take off up this really fast lift hill to this vertical dive. But I love this trench, this kind of open structure, kind of mine structure of sorts through the airtime hill here. Sort of a cheetah hunt style turnaround. And then we have our corkscrew. It's kind of set high up, but done really well to kind of blend that small inversion into a pretty big and fast coaster. Diving down here to the second launch, and then we'll go up and over. Pretty cool path interaction here with this sort of kind of top hat. Over through a roll, and then we'll get a what I assume to be a splashdown. Yep, it says so right there. So nice little splashdown piece here, and lots of good mining scenery and things here. Pretty simply done overall, but I think it looks nice. I'm less of a fan of this kind of variation of roof texture colors. Well, not texture, but color. It's interesting, but especially when you're using the this roof next door, it kind of stands out a little bit as far as that goes. And maybe it looks a little bit strange. I'd almost just be consistent here and just pick one sort of rustic color and go with it. But you know, to each their own for that kind of a thing. All right, so we continue on to this whole section, and let's go ahead and do the safari ride, because the safari ride takes up a lot of space, and you can see by that queue, holy cow, 232 people on the ride. And out of curiosity, there are let's see, station 1, 406 people in the queue. So super popular ride, which is fair to the real ride. So let's take a look at this thing. Let's zoom out. Like I said, this takes up probably a good quarter of the map nearly. So like the real thing, it's an experience, a very long ride experience, and the actual ride time on this thing is 8 minutes and 55 seconds, which we're not going to watch the whole thing because you can download the park and do that yourself. But we will take a look at just what there is to be seen. So the real thing has actual vehicles that are driven by real drivers, and they go through a number of animal habitats. And there was a storyline attached to it at one point that was kind of pretty intense and had a conversation or conservational message to it. That storyline's kind of gotten dumbed down to the point where it almost doesn't exist now. But you can still see a bunch of cool animals, and I would highly recommend it should you ever go this way. A cool bridge here over the crocodiles, perhaps. And then into this little village here, which kind of neat, the little huts and everything. And then this one, I assume it's under construction here. Our little flamingo island, a number of the different animals. The transitions are done nicely, like this guy right here. Lots more to see, and then a couple of these buildings put in there. I would probably say these buildings are generally going to be more on the outskirts of the Serengeti, just so that the trainer or the zookeepers can get to them a little more easily. And usually these are going to have a pretty substantial back of house space to them, but I give it points for actually including similar things in there because it definitely shows the thought process there. Cute little tents up on the side here, and then this mountain tableau in the background. A little bit rough on that, not my favorite, but we go through this whole inside tunnel area here. This is Mount Kilimanjaro. And we'll Hop out on the other side, and we'll go through another area here with the ostriches, more Serengeti. It's kind of a nice way to build in a space within the kind of dividing landscape between. I think this landscaping is done really well. It's clean. You don't need to shove scenery on every single landscape tile, and I think this is a good indication of how you can do that and still make it look good. Here we have the Lion Island, I suppose. As we come around and see some cheetahs here on this side, continue along through. Nice little shortcut here in case they ever need to make this a little bit smaller. Another cut through, pass through here as far as the hippos go, as we work back towards the main entrance and past the coaster and everything too. So on the whole, really neat to see, and I think that's a pretty substantial ride. Definitely took a lot of time and effort, I'm sure, and I think it turned out. It looks great. Really nice to see those adventure rides, and there's a lot to look at too with it. Like, it was kind of expertly crafted, I would say. Station is nicely done, but the landscape overall is just looks really nice, and I think it's worth a lot more of your time. So I would recommend when you do download this park to take a look and dig through that a little bit more deeply. Here's the Pangani Forest Trail. This is a copy of, or inspired by, the real thing at Animal Kingdom. Nice little walking trail here through the gorilla habitats, and big aviary in the middle here. Love these towers supporting the cables on either side. I think that's really well done. And then catching glimpses of some of the things that can be seen from the safari, just at a different angle. All right, let us come on back through here. Get back to the land of rides once again. And we will take a look at this area, which has a fair bit of scenery to be seen. So here's the Timon and Pumbaa Pal Around, which I think is a clever name. Over here we have the Circle of Life show inside this great building. And the Rafiki Rumble, a nice little scrambler here. And then we have a Wild Mouse, which not at all out of the realm of possibility based on Primeval Whirl at Animal Kingdom. So nicely done here. Also good detail here on the space frame underneath of it. So it does look like it is a portable type ride that could be here temporarily and might be here for a long term, like Primeval Whirl was. So nice details here. So this is really similar to the real area here. So like this hut and this bridge coming across from the Tree of Life is real similar to what you'll see in the real park. And this restaurant, I'm guessing he's got it right, is the Dawa Bar, and then there's the Tusker House. So this is a nice buffet restaurant in the real park, and actually a very good buffet if you ever get a chance to go. Lots of nice detailing down here by the river, and we have the Discovery River boats that are around here. So that used to be an attraction when the park first opened at Animal Kingdom, and that was since discontinued. But he's brought them back here. That kind of wraps all the way around, and we're going to go back in here through some of the other areas here, and then back out and around. So nice to see. Lots of little good details there. There's the nice monkey exhibits, and these kind of overhead wires that the monkeys can use to get across back and forth in the real thing. Alright, so here is a little show area. So this is the Birds of Wonder show, and then a little coffee house in front of it. Nice little Asian detailing here. So this is the Drinkwala little hut and shop here as we transition from more African influences to more Asian influences on this side. So if we spin around here, we can kind of see some of this like Maharaja Palace type thing. So here's the Wildlife Express, which actually kind of goes all the way around here and then comes back. So it does pass through a lot of the different wildlife areas. Now the real one takes you to Rafiki's Planet Watch, which is kind of an interactive meet and greet area for kids, for seeing the characters and seeing the animals. This one doesn't quite do that, but it does take you through a bunch of the different areas. And I'm not sure if there is a... Oh, here we go. This is a jungle trek of sorts right here. The Maharaja Jungle Trek, which is like the real thing also, so you can kind of go through. Here's another aviary. And then just a number of the other habitats for some of the lions, or sorry, not lions, tigers, that you have in the Asian areas through here. All right, so continue to the next ride. The next ride here is the Jungle River Rapids. So this is sort of the take on Cali River Rapids, but this one is huge. You can kind of see this is a massive ride, kind of similar on the scale to the Safari Adventure. Have our nice little circular station here with a lift up, and this one just keeps on going. I was actually super surprised at this. This is probably my biggest surprise of the entire map when I was looking at this the first time. So it's not only a thrill ride, but it's also a ride to go see a bunch of animals. So you kind of go through a lot of rapids rides here, cross this diagonal bridge, which is really well done. I like that. Up through here, past this alligator habitat, which is neat and kind of seamlessly integrated into the ride itself. And it cut through here back to this sort of Southeast Asian type architecture, sort of Cambodian look. That sort of Angkor Wat style going on through here. Really like this area. It almost kind of feels like Jungle Cruise in a way, where you're passing through a bunch of different areas and a bunch of different themed spaces and across the whole thing. And then we come up the big lift hill here, and we have our deforestation area, which is part of the theme of the real ride. Before we get through a pretty substantial splashdown, which we'll turn around and see that. A little less substantial on this ride than the real life thing, but come through here to some more Southeast Asia type raised huts here for some of the jungle type area. Another little couple of drops here before one final lift hill up and back through. Really like the queue line coming across the entry here, so you can kind of see the ride coming back and goes up underneath this the tunnel, or not tunnel, but the archway. I do like that quite a bit. And then just this this theming bit is very neat. But I mean, just the scale of this ride is immense. This is a 10-minute and 44-second ride. So this is longer than the Kilimanjaro Safari ride by a good 2 minutes nearly. So that's the ride I'm signing up to do if I come, because you're going to get your money's worth for sure. All right, so continuing on, we have Monkey Mayhem, another scrambler type ride, teacups. And then if we continue on, we get to Expedition Everest. So like the real thing here, this is a Boma type mine train coaster. We have our first lift hill here that kind of meanders over to the large lift hill here with the cool suspended structure that kind of bridges this huge gap. And then we have our little trick track here where it kind of all goes wrong. So the real story of this ride in real life Expedition Everest is that you are on a T train on the Anandapur Railroad, and you are doing your deliveries, well aware that you have heard of the rumors and the stories of the Yeti that exists, and you know, things go wrong on your exploration trek, and you may or may not encounter the Yeti on your adventure. So it does have this great forwards and backwards section, and I think they've done really well here for it, even though it's kind of hidden. But here we have that big signature drop down and around, and then back up through the mountain again, and then we have our helix on this backside that's hidden really well into the brakes on the other side. A couple things done really nicely here. I really like the reverser scene up here. I like how the mountain just ends, and we have our show building kind of information on the backside here. So it reads really well, and it reads as a theme park attraction that's not kind of fully fleshed out, like you didn't build out the mountain here with a whole bunch of theming on the backside. It properly ends where the guest would stop seeing it, so just like the real thing. And I think that's nicely done. Nice little detailing here with some of the rock work and things like that also. And just again with the peaks at the ride, but still not seeing the whole ride throughout, I think is done pretty well. And the architecture here is very nice. I think it's done quite well. Here's a nice little panda habitat. So, fun fact from a zoo standpoint, pandas are all property of the Chinese government. So if any park has pandas, they are there on loan from the Chinese government. So Whether you agree with that or not, that's the case. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So we come over here to this sort of mini area. This is the Mulan themed area. We have Khan, which is a motorbike type ride with steeplechase trains with the horses. This one actually feels sort of plausible for Disney for like a kids type ride, and I think it's really done. It's really well done. So nice little layout here, kind of L-shaped out and back layout with some corners in it. Looks like a kind of a fun kids ride. Maybe not up to the capacity that Disney might expect, but I think it's well done. And then on the other side here, we have this nice custom swing ride. Hopefully he's gotten that from seeing my tutorial that I've done. If you haven't seen that, feel free to look it up on the YouTube channel. It's under the hacking tutorial playlist. And we walk step by step through how to do this. But I think it's nicely done. He adapted the scenery that I had done for it to kind of fit this theme nicely, and I think he's done well to do it. It looks pretty good. Here's a canoe ride down here, Explorer Canoe. I would imagine this has hidden pathways since everybody's kind of going through the same general area. You really don't want to build in a whole lot of unique, or you don't want to build this in as a free kind of open paddle thing, because the guests just get lost. Unfortunately, the RCT guests are stupid, so they're just going to get stuck, and it's not worth your time. So I would always recommend just building this as a tracked guided ride, and then make the track invisible. So the we have a bridge coming across here, which is lifted from the Royal Animal Kingdom. It's got this kind of nice thick structural steel to it. This one's a bit thick. It reads not necessarily the best in RCT, but I think it looks nice, and the color is pretty cool. So we continue along to our next area here, where we have Condor, which is a drop tower ride of sorts here. So some of the bits and pieces here are things that he mentioned in his README are inspired by Busch Gardens also, which kind of explains some of the thrill rides too, as far as Disney versus somebody else goes. So this, you can kind of see some of those bits and pieces with something like this, which feels a lot like a Falcon's Fury type ride that you would see at Busch Tampa. Kind of have some nice little architecture here, some cool temple structures for this coaster. This is Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. So this is a B&M wing coaster, which I think is pretty well done. One of the challenges that the wing coaster brings is that it's really wide. So using the one tile wide trenches here doesn't really cut it. You can see how it clips right through the sides. So what I recommend people do when they build this type of ride is build it 2 tiles wide, but stagger it. So you have a center tile, then you go half tile on one side, half tile on the other. In general, I think it's going to look better. But, you know, it's also a little bit challenging to hide from a scenery standpoint sometimes. So your mileage may vary with that. So I'm pretty sure he's adjusted the mass of the train because it's moving a little bit better. This custom train is notorious for being a little sluggish. So thankfully he's adjusted it a little bit here. So let's look at the layout. We have our dive drop here with this big curve overhead. Another little trench, an S-curve to be implemented here using the pyramid, which is super cool. Like that a lot. Curved airtime hill here. Fast airtime hill, maybe not so B&M, but not too bad. Then we have our roll here over top of the station and entrance, which is a shame because you can't see it. It's kind of hidden in there. It's also taken maybe a little bit too fast. Same with the corkscrew. Would not necessarily recommend that fast, but you know, it's a little more fantastical of a ride. But we have our dive down into this sort of underground station here, which I kind of like. I like how that pops out on the side here diagonally with the lift hill, and the way that it's integrated into the scenery is very well done. And then the queue line here, you can kind of see walk past the brakes and everything, and I do like how the queue wraps around, and then how the structure here has some wood supports on it. Kind of looks like an archaeological expedition, perhaps. Another great bridge. That's one of his strengths, I think, is this kind of bridge detailing for all these different bridges. Each of the areas has sort of a different bridge to it, which is kind of neat. If we cross over here, we can get to our Hoot and Holler water slide ride. So little feels kind of like something you would have seen at River Country at Disney, which is their first water park. So kind of a different little ride there, a little water ride, and custom hacked and everything, which I appreciate. Over here we have Winnie the Pooh Adventures, nice little Virginia Reel Tubs type ride, so you can kind of expect that would be some type of a dark ride, perhaps. And then right here we have our Donald's Runaway Mine Train, which I actually really like this one too. This is a really cute coaster. Kind of feels similar to the Mulan motorbike type ride. Simple lift hill and just really well integrated into the landscaping, into the theming. Kind of has this sort of mining industrial type theme to it, and the layered track works really well. And honestly, it's just cute. I think it looks really nice. There's a couple of great viewing areas. We use this bridge really well coming across, so you kind of come through the area, have our nice little entry structure here, but then you have a great pass through on the first drop, and then a pass through on the way out. I think that's nicely done for that space. All right, continue to move. We have a couple more rides here. So this is Mythical Rhythms and Moose Tracks on this side. And then over here is another aviary on this side. This is Rainforest Cafe. So actually, this might be more of a cafe than anything else, but we have our little walkthrough space within this area, and then just a nice aviary again. Honestly, all the aviaries in this park were really well done. All right, and then here we have Soarin' Over the Americas. So our Soarin' ride in the little hangar here. So this is more of a Disney's California Adventure influence right here with the theming. But I think it looks great, and it's hidden pretty well. It's a little bit smaller than you would see for the real Soarin' Theater. Real Soarin' Theater is absolutely massive and a challenge to hide. So I can kind of get why he scaled it down just a little bit for the game. So can't fault that one bit. Have a nice little themed area here with the bear habitat and a couple of different like interactives and little enhancements within the habitat there. And then what I think is our last ride here is the Grizzly Peak Logging Company. So similar in theme, at least on kind of the front side, to the Grizzly Peak ride at Disney's California Adventure, which is a Rapids ride, but we already used the Rapids ride on that 10-minute massive adventure on the backside, so this is a log flume instead. We have similar architectural elements to the real thing. This is kind of a nice little structure here with the lift hill. Really like how the lift hill is kind of themed throughout. So you have this entrance piece here, which I assume has like a show scene in it, and the lift hill itself, and then another one up top, and then we have our raised area along the backside here, where we have maybe another show scene and it drops down. Another little section here, and then one big lift up to the final drop down here underneath of this wolf sculpture on top, which is just super cool, super well done. I assume it's a wolf sculpture anyway, even though it's called Grizzly Peak. Looks more wolf than bear, I suppose. But I think that's everything. Zoom out real quick. See, like I said, this is a massive park. Honestly, these days you never see something this size, a 230 square park. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, it's just kind of amazing to me that he managed to A, finish this park, B, still make it all look pretty good despite the object limits, and, C, carry it on for 10 years to the finish line. I mean, I have my own park that's 10 years down the line and not anywhere close to being done, but this is really well done, and I think there's a lot of great details here, a lot of things that are well thought through. I mean, my coaster gripe aside, I think this is a really spectacular park. There's just a lot to see. I mean, there's some areas that are a little rough around the edges from theming that you can tell are more 10 years old than 1 year old, but there's some other areas here that are really strong as far as architecture goes and things like that. I mean, if we had to go through and kind of pick out some favorite bits and everything, really like the architecture in the Aladdin Agrabah type area. I love these nature walks. Honestly, pretty much all of the nature walks I'm a big fan of. This one especially. This one is definitely my favorite. The whole safari ride is just great. Really well done. A lot of great habitats and just nicely detailed. And then the rapids ride back here. I mean, just the size of this thing, it's incredible. And I don't think I would have ever thought about making a safari ride on or out of a rapids ride. So, credit to Colby for putting that together. I think that's cool. And it's just interesting seeing the mix of attractions from Animal Kingdom to Disney Sea to California Adventure to Magic Kingdom to all these different areas, and you can definitely pick out what kind of things were inspired by. You can tell he's done his research, so definitely some good credit to be had there. I think it's well done, and there's a lot more detail than kind of the surface level might allude. So check this out for yourself. Give it a download. Take your time and explore it. I mean, we've spent 45 minutes here looking through this park, but honestly, we could probably go on for a good deal longer if we really wanted to. But I will let you explore at your own pace, and we will call it a day for this stream. So thank you very much for watching, and if you have a park that you would like to see featured on a future stream, feel free to let me know, and definitely check out the YouTube video here and then all the other ones that I put up. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.